inside the off stump. Oh, he's caught it! I don't believe it! Tom Kohler-Cadmore has caught the most magnificent catch. That short third man is the end of Daniel Sams, and Somerset have won the Vitality Blast 2023. They bowled Essex out for 131.
Hello there, you're listening to Always Look on the Bright Side of Life. This is the Somerset Cricket Podcast. My name's Ian Shepherd, and joining me this evening, I've got lifelong Somerset fan, exiled up north, who just let rip a massive cough, but was polite enough to mute himself, Steve Tancock. Steve, how you doing?
Evening. I'm all right, thank you, Ian.
Good. And also with me is the official custodian of the Maidens Bowl by Somerset men's players in T20 cricket, Dan Kingdom. Dan, the question is, are you going to be starting up a list for the professional women's team of Maidens Bowl in T20 cricket?
I expect they will, yep. And I've also got now going a list of matches that Somerset win or don't win with or without Craig Overton. I've updated that stat. So, that'll be topical, I think, for this pod. Very
much on the agenda for later. Gibbo is going to be joining us. He's probably got stuck having his last pint at Eli's that somebody's bought him. So Gibbo will be with us directly, as they say in this part of the world. But we are recording this today after Somerset recorded what feels like their second defeat of the season, but it is in fact their first defeat of the season, losing to a pretty spirited and well-drilled Sussex side at Hove by 260 runs. I guess we'll start with a post-mortem of where did it all go wrong, starting, as was teased by you a moment ago, Dan, with the resting, or as Trev, I think, questioned on Twitter, whether he was suspended for having a go at that idiot on Twitter, but I very much doubt that. If anything, he should be given a pay rise for that. The absence of Craig Overton, who, as you said a second or two ago, we have not won a county championship match without Craig Overton since a long time ago.
September 2019, yeah. So just to give the full context, Somerset last won a first-class match without Craig against Yorkshire at Taunton in September 2019. Since then, Somerset have played 66 first-class matches, winning 19 of them. Overton played in all 19 of those wins. So Somerset's record with Overton in that period, since the last win without him, is 19 wins in 46 matches. Somerset's record without Overton in this period is 0 wins in 20 matches. So it's a significant enough number of matches without Craig to know that, it does matter whether or not he plays. And I think you could just tell in this game that while the batting was an issue too, the bowling lacked firepower without him. I mean, we obviously did have that good spell just after lunch on day one. But for the most part, we struggled, particularly in that second innings, taking just one wicket in the 2 sessions we bowled at them on day 2. It is worrying, and the fact that we've got an aging bowling attack at the moment. We've lost Sonny Baker, who is doing pretty well for Hampshire.
Don't mention that. Plenty to talk about that.
Matt Henry should Matt Henry should obviously be here, and he's not here. And so without Henry or Craig, we do look worryingly docile with the ball. And I think once pitches spin a bit, then Leach will obviously come into the game more, Vaughan will come into the game more, and I think we'll find it easier to pick up wins. But at the moment, it's a struggle.
Josh Davey looks a much better bowler when he's got Craig at the other end. I mean, the plan would have been obviously for Matt Henry to be here, but he's not here. I am really always of the opinion that you put your best 11 on the park, and if you need to rest someone, you rest them when they need a rest. Look how it backfired for England a couple of years ago in the Ashes when, I forget where they rested either Broad or Anderson for that first test, and they got hammered because they said, "Oh, we'll keep them for the day-night test, the pink ball test." Broad and Anderson, two of the best exponents of seam and swing bowling in the world. We'll have the Aussies hooked on that. Didn't happen. And now we're saying, well, we can beat Sussex without Craig Overton because we need him for Surrey, Hampshire, and Essex, which we do. But he could rock up perfectly fine after Sussex. He could rock up perfectly fine after Surrey. He could rock up perfectly fine after Hampshire. He could be fit for all those 5 games. Steve, I don't know.
Alternatively, could turn his ankle in the first over at the Utilita Bowl, and it's all for nothing anyway. I agree with you, Ian. I think it's a case of overthink. Dan, just one question before we go on. That Yorkshire game you referred to, I'm pretty certain Jamie played in that one.
He did, yeah. So the question is, when we last one without an Overton?
Overton, yeah.
Yeah, I haven't looked into that, but that would have been. It could be. Like
I couldn't resist because I just remember Jamie playing in that game. Yeah, it could well be.
Yeah, it could be a long time. I mean, he was fit. He was out there sub fielding and everything, and it was confirmed that he was rested. There wasn't a niggle or anything. Just seems inexplicable to me. Play your best team, get as many points on the board as you can. If somebody needs a rest, you rest them. But it just backfires.
Just to play devil's advocate, I'm not saying I agree with this, but I think the thinking from the club is that it's kind of one bowler rests each match almost, rather than play our best attack for the first 4 games and then everyone be burned out for that Essex game. I think they just want to manage it as they go, kind of thing. I think that's the thinking. It's kind of preemptive, like rest Craig before he gets too tired to bowl. It's also the fact that he can now fully go for it in these next 3 games, knowing he's going to, play them all. He knows he's got that rest period after the Essex game. That's part of the thinking, I think, with any sort of planned ahead resting. So I suspect, whoever is rested next week will, they'll have known that perhaps, and they will have been able to really go for it in the last 2 games, knowing they've got a rest coming up. That's kind of, I think, part of the thinking behind it. It is sort of as fans, we want to see our best team go out, playing every time. But they obviously plan ahead with these things, rather than everyone then needing a rest at once, and then we're like, oh, hang on, we've now got a pretty tired bowling attack. We might have to make 3 changes. They kind of sort of preempt these things a little bit. So that's their logic, I think. But yeah, whether you agree or disagree.
I don't ever remember it working though. That's the thing. It always seems to backfire, especially with us. But anyway,
when you've got the decision last year to rotate Casey after he had that great game at the Oval, it doesn't increase my faith in the rotation policy hugely.
Yeah, I think you've got to keep the bowlers fit. Everyone's on board with that. Everyone's on the same page with that. But I think I don't like this preemptive resting. I just want you put the best 11 on the part. One of the bowlers needs a rest, and they need a rest.
I think it's also about stopping injuries before they happen as well. Like, rather than waiting for them to be burned out, waiting for them to potentially get an injury, actually just manage them and say, hang on, take a rest now, and then you can have a few more games before we have another bye week. I mean, I'm not saying I agree, but I'm just explaining what I think the team's thinking is. And all counties do it. All counties rotate their bowlers. It's not just us.
And Gibbo has just arrived. Evening, Gibbo.
Hello, Ships, and hello, Steve. Hello, Dan. And my camera for some reason isn't working, but I can see you, even though you can't see me.
Oh, good. We were just discussing the preemptive resting of Craig Overton.
Well, you can understand why they did it, because we do have 3 big games coming up, and he is a bit injury prone. So, but it sadly it didn't work out. I think they maybe misjudged Sussex a little bit. I've been saying all along that Sussex at home was a tough game, and various other people said, "Oh no, they're just promoted from the 2nd division. It's we should roll them over, no trouble at all." But no, Sussex were good, and without Craig Overton, it's not, and without Matt Henry as well. It's not a great seam attack.
No, especially when they didn't bowl particularly well on that first morning. They let them get off to, what was it? We got Haynes pretty quickly, and then they
for 1.
Yeah, 24 for 1, and then they him and Hughes and Clark put on that 100 partnership where we didn't seem to bowl very well. Casey, it seemed to have a bit of a block against left-handers. He seems much more comfortable bowling to right-handers. And really, it was Lewis Gregory and Josh Davey who were keeping the runs down. Pretorius looked like he just needed a little bit of a run up before lunch. He was a bit rusty, came back very well, I thought, in that second session after lunch.
Well, they all did.
What do we take? Yeah, 7 for whatever it was in that last session. In the session after lunch. But we couldn't finish the job. If only we had a bowler who could bowl 95-mile-an-hour Yorkers and pick up 5 wickets in an innings against the tail enders. But we'll come on to that later.
I think the worrying thing is we probably haven't won a session now for, apart from that one you just referred to, the second session on day one, probably for 15 or 16 sessions. Which, normally you'd look at a championship game and you'd say even a team that dominated wouldn't have won every session. But we just seem, to me, off it. I was thinking before, because I listened to Anthony for the majority of the game just because of where I was and what I was doing and whatever. What's the radio equivalent of watching the telly from behind the sofa? Because I thought of it because the new Doctor Who series started on Saturday, and I remember as a kid, my early days hiding behind the sofa to watch it, and I felt like I was certainly Sunday and Monday I was listening to Anthony from behind the radio equivalent of the sofa, because it was just. And you said, Shep, earlier, you sort of thought until Abe's and Gregory were separated, but I have to say I didn't have any hope of us doing a Worcester on day 4 at Hove, I'm afraid.
Yeah, the pitch seemed to get a little bit livelier on day 4. I think, was it Rui got that nasty sharp one that just lifted into his gloves from Jaden Seals. It wasn't a minefield by any stretch of the imagination, but it was certainly had a bit more life in it than the surface that we saw at the county ground last week. We're trying to bowl Worcester out on. What did you make of the surface, Gibbo? You were there as well, and yourself down as well. Were there in person?
It was pretty good wicket. It offered help for the seamers in certainly the first 2 sessions, and on into the second day as well. And there was a little bit in it for the spinners as well. I thought it was a very good cricket wicket. It was a lot better than the one at Taunton. It made for a well balanced game of cricket. I thought the only really dull session was when Sussex were building their lead on the third morning and afternoon, when they batted really quite unenterprisingly, which was a shame because it was free entry. So a lot of people there who probably hadn't watched county championship cricket before, and they saw some pretty unenterprising, rather dull batting against uninspired bowling from Somerset. But no, it was good cricket wicket, good crowd. They're a good team, Sussex. Well balanced. And Sean Hunt, their left-arm seamer, I thought, looks very, very impressive indeed. Bowled really well. Took the last 5 wickets in the Somerset first innings and the first 4 in the Somerset second innings. And then, poor chap, he hurt his arm and couldn't bowl on the last day. But part as I say, apart from that business of Sussex building their lead to mountainous proportions when they didn't really need to, it was a good game of cricket.
They were almost batting Somerset back into the game, weren't they? The speed or lack of it that they
absolutely
pursued their accumulation. 507. Tom Haynes made a 141. Simpson was 110 not out. But where it cost us 184 opening partnership after. And I thought on that third morning, so I was at Newbury Races, so I was able to watch most of it till it started, and I watched most of it up till lunch. And I thought, do you know what? This isn't looking too bad at periods. And then we just seemed to lose a wicket. It was what he would start the day. Was it Rue and Gregory would start the day with?
Gregory,
yeah.
No, I mean the Rue Gregory partnership of 110 almost sort of got us back in the game, and then Gregory played a sort of nothing shot, one of his sort of on drives, but without really playing it with conviction, was caught at mid on, and then the tail sort of melted away, and and left James Rew high and dry, where, it did look for a time as if we might get up somewhere close to the Sussex first innings. And if we had have done, it might have been a different outcome. But, these things happen. I thought Gregory batted very well in both innings, actually. And James Rew, likewise, he was a superb 18 not out in the first innings. He looked $1 million. And he was very unlucky in the second innings to get an absolute brute of a ball from Jayden Seales first up on the last morning. And there's not a batsman in the world who could have played that. It just took off from a length, took his glove, and that was that. But he looks in very good nick, James Rew, I must say. He looks as if I asked him whether he felt his game was improving from year to year, and he said yes, he thought it was, and I would agree with that.
I would agree as well. You mentioned Lewis Gregory and how he batted in both innings. Indeed, why do we think he's coming in below Casey? Casey is a talented. Casey's got the talent, but I think you're putting him in ahead of Gregory. You're kind of saying to him, "You're the main all-rounder. You need to score the number 7's runs," which is maybe putting more pressure on him than saying you've got to score the runs of a number 8 or even a number 9. I mean, certainly
are they thinking it gives him more responsibility, maybe, and it makes him play as they want him to play? I don't know. Part of me thinks it's a bit like a club captain who should be batting 6 or 7 and bats himself 8 or 9. A skipper, maybe he's batting, but Lewis Gregory could bat 5 in this batting lineup.
Yeah, I would suggest playing for your third 11 club side, and you've got your skipper who's been there, done that. Is a world away from the county championship. I do kind of understand where you're coming from, but for me, I think with Casey, I almost want to say the way I would kind of manage him is to say, do you know what, you bowled really well last week. That was so good. That's what we want to see from you every week. Just drop a couple of places down the order and just worry about your bowling for a few weeks. Get yourself in a real good rhythm. Don't worry about the batting. You go. If you score runs, you score runs. We know you've got the talent. We know you'll apply yourself when you're out there. But your job in the side isn't to score runs. It's to take wickets and bowl well. If you score runs, it's a bonus. But, we want you to bat 8 or 9. It's not an insult on your technique or your ability or whatever. But, we know what a devastating bowler you can be like you were last week. Go out and do that. And if you score runs, great. If you don't worry about it.
It's not actually... It's not actually a new thing. It's not actually a new thing. I'm just had a look. It's easy to forget the last 4 games of last season, Aldridge batted ahead of Lewis. Early season, it was Gregory ahead of Aldridge, and then there's a few games where they didn't play together. But when they played together towards the end of the season, they swapped, so Aldridge came in ahead of Lewis. And if you look at the scores, actually, I mean, Casey probably does do better when he's below Lewis, when he is slightly lower. Actually, I mean, he did have 84 against Warwickshire at 7 last year, but. Yeah, I definitely agree. Yeah, Gregory has a better technique, a much more solid technique. He's got so much more experience. He should be ahead of Aldridge, and then it's a question of who goes first out of Aldridge and Craig, I think. But Gregory first for sure.
And Dan, you can argue that if Casey bats at 8 and he's batting with the lower order, he might play slightly differently, and he might benefit from that. It's almost, for me, he's almost trying to bat slightly too sensibly and not letting his natural game, because we know he can play. We've seen him score runs.
He didn't bat very sensibly yesterday morning.
No, okay, Anthony, I knew you'd say that as the words were coming out. But I think in general, the principle, and you can say the same about Miguel, can't you? Well, that breeze is probably understating it yesterday afternoon, but that was him playing his natural game, knowing that. He didn't have a lot, no disrespect, but he didn't have a lot around him and he wanted to get on with it. And part of me was going, oh, Miguel, just rein it in a bit, just rein it, bat till tea or something. But if you'd asked him to, he'd probably have perished anyways. It's a very difficult dynamic because it's so much of it is played in the head at this level. Might talk about playing it in the head, though. I'm really going to say it now. Archie Vaughan clearly locked into open, but we have to do something about this opening partnership. Yeah. I'm sorry. And I don't know. I'm not going to say I've got the answer, but I know the answer isn't what we've got at the moment.
Well, I think one of the answers needs to be: do not bowl the I nearly called him a kid then, that was a bit disrespectful, but he is a young cricketer learning how to open the batting in first class cricket, and it cannot be helping his game to be bowling. What did he bowl in the Sussex second innings? 40 overs, was it? Yeah, 40 overs dead on. He must be
Again,
knackered. That
after
can't
40
be
overs
helping
the
him.
week before.
Yeah, and yeah, after however many overs he bowled on Monday and all the pressure of trying to win that game, I mean, they obviously know what, the character of the lad, but even if he's an absolute machine, an absolute robot, Gibbo's dropped out, we'll let him back in. And that, can't be doing him any good to be bowling that amount of overs and then tell him to go out and open the batting.
Do you want to start about opening partnerships?
No, I
yes,
don't.
please.
I don't want to hear
Yes,
any
yes,
stats about
yes,
Somerset
please.
opening partnerships that existed after Arrow Sapphire and Marcus Scothic, please, Dan.
Fair enough. Well,
Go on then.
so since the start,
go on.
Since the start of last season in the county championship, we've had 28 first wicket partnerships. They've averaged 18.32. We've tried 8 different pairs. Prior to Hove, we actually had 6 different pairs in 6 games. Obviously, we've now had Dixon and Vaughan for 2 games in a row, but before that, it was pair after pair at the end of last season. Since the start of last season, we've had just 100 partnership, which was 111 against Notts at Taunton last year. Just 2 other opening partnerships which exceeded 50. We had 12 opening partnerships out of 28 in double figures and 16 opening partnerships out of 28 in single figures. So the numbers are absolutely shocking. And obviously, I haven't compared them to other counties, but it must be like the worst record of an opening partnership in the country. And we've got to do something about it. Obviously, we keep chopping and changing the pairs, which is probably both a symptom and a cause, because we just don't know.
I tweeted this. I don't think I said it on last week's podcast, but every member of the squad, specialist batter who has played a championship game, has opened the batting.
Yeah.
How mad is that? Everyone's had a go, and no one's claimed it. It's ridiculous.
Has Tom Banton opened the batting in the championship then?
Yeah, he did against Surrey back in 2018 or 17.
Yeah,
with
Marcus.
Marcus.
2021 he opened as well.
Yeah.
The year after COVID, he opened again that game he won at Middlesex. Do you remember
He
that
opened
one?
a few
I think he got a
games.
few.
He
opened 3 or 4.
He opened about 6 or 7 games at the start of the 2021 season. Maybe not that many, but he had a few games in a row at the start of the 2021 season, opening with Lammonby, and it didn't work.
Yeah. What about ones that left? Byram's definitely had a go. Did
Yeah.
Bartlett ever open? But I know he opened in T20s
think
a few
so.
times.
We've had. I've got the list here. We've had since Trez retired, we've had Abel, Azhar Ali, Tim Greenwood as a night watchman, Steve Davis, Eddie Byram, Tom Lammonby, Ben Green, Devon Conway, Tom Abel, who I might have already said, I can't remember, Matt Renshaw, Imam Ul-Haq, Sean Dixon, Andrew Mead, Cola Cadmore, Goldsworthy for a couple of games, and obviously Archie Vaughan. I think I've named them all. I mean, Goldsworthy was unlucky last year. He did all right opening, and now he got jettisoned after a couple of games, which I thought was really harsh.
All right, it's pretty good in the context of the stats you've just said, Dan.
Yeah. I mean, if we didn't have this crisis of not being able to find openers, Dan, you'd have nothing to do. You'd just be sat there sort of looking at sitting lying in your bed, looking at your got nothing to do. I got no stats to generate.
Is this the point in where you played the clip of Anthony talking about the Rue brothers to save him having to say it again?
Well, I mean, it's Easter holiday, so young Thomas is captaining the twos as well, I see. So, last week we were sort of halfway through that Essex game, which we ended up winning. What did we chase? About 320 in the last 2 sessions. Umid got a big 100, 180, I think. Goldsworthy was 150 not out. Thomas Rue got a bright and breezy 70 odd in the first innings. I think Josh Thomas got a few runs as well. I mean, can we keep Dixon in? Do we honestly think Sean Dixon now is going to turn a corner in these next 2 or 3 games and all of a sudden start turning out 50s, batting for 2.5 to 3 sessions like we need him to?
Well,
I'd love it if he did, but I just can't see it happening based on what we've seen for the last 2, 3. Well, yeah, this season and last season, the season before of him opening the batting.
He's averaging 19 now for Somerset.
I just,
which is, I mean, he's such a nice bloke, and I just so wish that he could get a score opening the batting and make that position his own. I think from what Jason Kerr had to say when I asked him about this, I think they'll probably persevere with him for at least one more game, and possibly 2 more. But
that's a big word. I mean, I presume you didn't say persevere, but that's what you inferred. Because if you're persevering with a player, it's a lot different to going, what are you talking about? Sean Dixon is a brilliant player. He's got our full backing to go out there and score 100.
Well, what
down at
Jason
the Hideous
said
Bowl on Friday.
He said Dicko has been opening the innings. He's an opener by trade. He's been opening the innings throughout his first-class career. Which is true. But if you look at his averages, I haven't got the figures in front of me. They when he played for Kent, he was averaging 35. When he played for Durham, about 36. Now for us, he's averaging 19. And you can't go on forever. I think probably I'd give him one more go, because there's no obvious alternative. I'm not sure Lewis. I know you think Lewis Goldsworthy is the answer. I'm not sure about that opening the innings. I think I'd give him one more go and see how he gets on. But you really want a left, going back to the Roux brothers and all of that. You want you want a left-hand, right-hand combination to open the innings.
Mhm.
If you look at the stats, the left-hand, right-hand combinations have much better success ratio than.
Are you suggesting,
Anthony, 2 right-handers?
Anthony, are you suggesting that Sean Dixon should try batting left-handed to get himself out of this?
Well, I thought so. The trouble is, he block, and play really sensibly, and then play an absolutely, bonkers sort of shot.
Yeah. It's not even a big wahoo kind of bonkers shot. It's just the wrong shot. It's It's trying to work the straight ball through mid-wicket kind of shot instead of make his name.
If this is a description to me, it's a concentration switched off shot. We were saying earlier about Lewis Gregory, who bats beautifully, and then I think Anthony's words where he played a typical Lewis Gregory shot to get out, and I think Dixon does that. He does. I have this thing, because often if we're having a good partnership and I've been in a meeting or something and I look at the score, do I put it on now or do I jinx it? And I've had 3 or 4 times when I've thought recent past, I think Dixon's cracked this now. And the minute I've thought it, I haven't said it to anyone, obviously I've just thought it, stop, and then something happens. And, if the coach says he is an opening batsman, then yes, he's an opening batsman because he's been asked to open the batting, but he doesn't seem to have that mental fortitude, as you say, to bat 2 sessions, 2.5 sessions, which is what you need. And the other problem for me is it's putting more pressure on Archie, which is the last thing he needs at this stage of his career.
Yeah. I mean, I did notice that Dixon had developed a bit of a trot style routine of sort of a constant thing he would do, actions he would do between balls. He'll scratch his guard, little trot the square leg, deep breath, 12 back, come back in and start to face. So it's obviously, that will generally work as in terms of kind of resetting, making sure you're playing every ball on its merits, not getting impatient and, looking for that big shot when the ball's not quite there. But it's not stopped him playing it still. I mean, he got a good one second innings, didn't he? That one that kind of...
Yeah. That was good ball. Yeah, he had to play at it, and it left him.
And that's the sort of thing that happens when you're in a poor run of form. You then you attract those. The cricketing gods are cruel like that, aren't they? Shep, I hear what you say, but it actually worries me. And I must admit, I hadn't really reckoned that. But sometimes you wonder, like watching the golf at the weekend, you think sometimes these golfers are so concentrating on their pre-shot routine that they actually don't hit the ball as well because they're not playing naturally. And I do wonder whether Dixon's going, right, I've got to walk here now and do this, and now I've got to do that and do it. And it's almost more exhausting. It's batting should be natural. Look at Tom Lammonby, who's the most natural person in the world. You know, you almost think in the best possible way, he's not thinking about it until that split second before the bowler bowls. And I worry that Dixon's expending too much nervous energy as well.
I mean, I'm sure Dixon will be aware of the fact
possibly.
that Dixon will be aware of the fact that batters in form don't really think. They don't, you know, it's batters who are out of form that overthink it, and that's, you know, almost why they struggle. But once you're in form, you don't really need to think about it. But into that mindset where you don't really need to think about it, where it all comes naturally. And it's that paradox of how do you get out of being, you know, how do you go from bad form to good form? You know, it's very difficult. You know, the vagaries of form are very difficult to understand. But he'll know all about this because he's into his psychology, isn't he? I think he's doing a psychology degree now or something. He'll be desperately trying to work out how to find that natural form. But we know, I mean, he's done it a few times for us. He's done it in the past for his previous counties. But one thing actually about his 30s for Kent and Durham, but that was mostly in Division 2.
It was, yeah.
In Division 1, he's largely struggled. So, yeah, and I would keep him for another game or two. I think at the start of the season, I would have said we've got to just pick a partnership and stick with it rather than the constant chopping and changing of last season. Now it's very easy to say, well, maybe we should make a change. But yeah, for now, I think give this pair a couple more games, I would say.
I mean, and the guy can definitely handle pressure as well, because 3 games in a row, he's at finals day. 2023, the semi-final, both top scored, and then that brilliant partnership with James Rew last year against Surrey. You know, where the pressure's on, you know, full house, knockout games, he's delivered. So, you know, he can clearly, he's not bottling it in the sense that, oh my God, you know, I'm opening the bat and this, that, and the other. You know, he's clearly cool under pressure.
But then my comment to that is, again, there's a heck of a difference between 20 overs and having to get on with it and play in a certain way, and the mentality of opening the batting at Hove on a championship game with your task being realistically to bat deep into the day. And maybe, you know, we're over-analysing somebody who's clearly over-analysing it probably, but it just, I'm quite simple in this approach and sort of straightforward. It's very quite black or white to me. And if I was the coach, I would say to him, no, sorry. And whether it's Lewis Goldsworthy or whether you know, I'm not averse to giving James Rew a run at the top now. And the three of you probably shout at me because you'll say, well, he shouldn't be keeping wicket as well. But if what we've got isn't working and James Rew is perhaps the long-term solution, you go to him and say, Rewy, open, and you're going to have to keep wicket for a few games until your brother is on the scene, but go for it and see how it happens. Because, you know.
I do have news from the seconds because Josh Thomas has made 43 not out today. And Umeed is
the batting.
42. So what about Josh Thomas as an option?
No.
Eh? I think
he's left-handed.
I rate Josh Thomas. I think he's one of the best of these younger ones.
Yeah, got a big opportunity tomorrow.
Will Smeed's playing as well. He's coming in at number 5, so that would be interesting to see as well. He might feature as an opening option.
Or you open with James Rew and you bat Smeed at 6.
No, I've been tempted to put Smeed in at to open. Well, you know, on the sort of Bazball principle, it worked. You know,
okay.
Crawley, you know, Ben Duckett.
Well,
going in.
I mean, and in the sense that the middle order's pretty locked in from 3 down to 6. If we're keeping Rew down at 6,
absolutely.
I'm with you. I'm not averse to kicking Rew up the order and keeping the gloves on him. I mean, let's be honest. We had Steve Davis do it, and bless him, Davos put on a bit of timber in the latter stages of his time at Somerset, and he wasn't looking the fittest he'd ever been, and he was still managing to do it. So I'm sure young 21,
not with great success. I mean, his wicket keeping was great, but his opening the batting wasn't great, in all honesty, which was a shame because he was
Dan's now going to find
my favourite cricketers.
Dan's going to find a stat that says Steve Davis figured in 5 of the best opening partnerships in that spell he referred to earlier, or something. Completely
why not?
Make us all look stupid.
Gareth Roderick did it for Worcester last week.
Well, you could give Banton the gloves. Yeah, you could give Banton the gloves.
Yeah,
a perfectly respectable wicketkeeper, and say to James Rew, "Yeah, go up and open the innings." I just don't think it's going to happen. I think they'll persevere with Sean Dixon for at least one, probably 2 more games, and then goodness knows what will happen till then. If we don't do a bit better in the next 2 games, then some very serious thinking has got to be going on in that dressing room, in that amongst the Somerset cricket management.
Another lad who's in rotten form is Tom Banton. Only made 6 and 0.
He got a couple of really good ones from So, and these things happen.
Steve James wrote in the Times. He said he thinks he's got a problem with his technique. His front foot's too open and his weight's a little bit too much on the back foot, which is the ball's nibbling away from you. May cause you an issue, but
yeah, I can see that. Yeah, Well, Steve James is one of the best analysts in the business.
Yeah.
Well, one more thing as well. It's just worth noting that Andy Mead's obviously in excellent form for the seconds, 186 out of 160, along with 33 or 36 and 42 or 40. The concern for me, though, is he doesn't seem to have actually changed his style of opening the batting. So these 2 games he's played for the seconds, he's opening. Last year, when he opened first in the county championship, he went far too hard, and it came off a couple of times. But there was a couple of absolutely crazy shots he played at Old Trafford, wasn't there, where he got out straight away. And that style just didn't seem to really work in Division 1 for him. But he doesn't seem to have. It's almost. I know he's done all right for the seconds, 186 of 160. I'm not going to complain, but I'd almost be more reassured if that 106 had come off 300 balls. So it wouldn't shock me to see Mead opening in a few games' time.
Yeah,
but
in the context of that, he had to have a dash, didn't he? Because they needed 300 in 2 sessions. So.
True, but I don't think that made much difference because his other innings have been pretty runnable anyway. So
he'll be the next cab off the rank. I tell you that he'll be the next one.
The daft thing is he takes his time in the 50 over stuff.
Yeah,
the amount of times he's scored hundreds, and you look at him after 10 overs and he's on 25, 35. Yeah. He hasn't opened his shoulders at all, and then he just
but it's so much. It is a lot easier in 50 over cricket with a white ball on flat pitches than it.
I know, but the approach, I mean,
in the innings. Yeah, I know, but I think he gets a bit scrambled when he's trying to open the innings against the red ball on seaming wickets. It's a very, very different game of type of cricket, and he's a bit like Tom Banton was 3 or 4 years ago. He doesn't know which way to play. His instincts tell him to play one way, and the coaches are telling him to play another way. And
when I was growing up, my dad worked with Alan Parsons, father of the twins, who was a prolific opener for St Andrews for years and years and years. And he played a bit of twos cricket. And he said to me that when he was playing Somerset League, Premier League, Division 1, he reckoned he could score off 4 or 5 balls and over. And when he stepped up into second 11 cricket, he said there was probably 1 or 2 balls and over that he could score off. That was the golf, and he would consistently top the batting averages in the Somerset League year after year.
Yeah.
And then I remember saying to him, so when you've played second 11 cricket with a first teamer, and he went, so he would have opened the batting with, I guess, the likes of, oh God, I've forgotten the name now, but the Roebuck Popplewell era, that sort of time, Phil Slocum probably. And he said, and I'll be at one end on 10 not out after 10 overs, and Slocum's on 43 in a second 11 game, because he could score off 4 or 5 balls in second 11 cricket. And I do think that, I'm taking red ball because I think Anthony's point is exactly right. And I think that's where we are. We seem to have quite a few openers. Like Dixon could drop back in the seconds and score a blazing 100, but I think that step up from second 11 to first 11 cricket, first division cricket, is huge now.
Yeah, definitely agree. Anything more on Hove then before we crack on and talk about a few other things? Go around the grounds.
I could give one more stat about away wins, which people may have seen on Twitter, but we've won 3 of our last 26 away county championship matches, a run that stretches back to May 2021, which is quite worrying.
Is it that many? Okay, Northants, Middlesex, and
Gloucestershire.
No.
Yeah.
That was 2020.
Oh, so they're that few and infrequent. They stand out quite obviously and very easy to remember.
And they were much more frequent before that. I think it's like 12 away wins out of 18 before that. So there's been a serious drop off. Yeah, 12 and 18.
Blame COVID.
And is it right we haven't won a game of county championship cricket without Craig Overton since 2019?
That's right. Yeah, I think it was just before you came on we discussed that. Yeah, it's September 2019, the last time we won without him. And since then, we've played 20 games without him. So it's a significant enough number to know that it really matters whether or not we play him.
Yeah.
Some good finishes around the grounds. I watched Warwickshire sneak home up at Durham yesterday night. Watched with a bad light ruin what was boiling up to be a pretty good finish at the Oval yesterday. Sonny Baker, ex of this parish, picking up 5 wickets. Looking at the 2 pitches that we've been bowling on the last the games, could have done with him, couldn't we?
Yep.
Anyway.
I don't know. I never saw enough of him to form any judgment. I saw him play a couple of one-day cup games when he got smashed all over the place. And did he play a championship game? I think he played a championship game as well. Did he?
No.
We played 1 blast game last year against
one blast game. Overs. So, and I never saw him playing for the second 11. So I never really, he was obviously quick and keen, but I don't know. But I'm not quite. Did he leave of his own accord, or was his contract not renewed?
Well, his contract was up. I spoke to him at the dinner. He said he didn't want to leave. Now, whether that's reluctant, didn't want to leave, but my opportunities are so much better elsewhere, or I was not offered a renewed contract by Somerset. There's all sorts of kind of ways that could have been taken, and I probably had about 2 bottles of wine, but myself by then as well. So there is that.
I've read there's an interview with him last month, I think, which said that we did offer him a new contract, but presumably it wasn't the package that he wanted. And obviously going to Hampshire to work with players like Kyle Abbott was attractive to him, and they probably guaranteed him more playing time because we just have hardly picked him. I mean, I know he's been injured a lot of the time, but last season he was fit until about mid-July. And he hardly played. He played that 1 blast game. And I just think we missed such an opportunity to pick him for at least a few blast games, And I don't want to pick on Jake Ball again, but I just don't really understand why Ball got in ahead of Baker in the blast. Like we have Baker has done so. Like he did get smashed a few times the One Day Cup, as Anthony said, but there were some times where he bowled with serious wheels in the One Day Cup, picked up wickets. He got a couple of fifers. He has so much potential. And it's just such a shame that we've managed to squander that. And he's now doing the business for Hampshire, although who knows when he may pick up his next injury. But yeah, I just think he was worth persevering with and giving a better offer, I think, and giving him some more.
I bet he's looking forward to Friday more than I am.
Yes.
Well, he might be preemptively rested. Who knows?
Yes, you rest your best bowlers against the weaker teams, don't you? Anyway. Well, I had a question in from Jack who says, should we be investing more time in Ogborne and Leonard? I think you might have forgot that old Ned's off to Glamorgan, or just using it as an example to avoid a similar outcome as we've had losing Sonny to Hampshire. I was thinking about this, and I think when you've got a young bowler and you've got to pick them when they're bowling well. I don't think you can kind of pick them when it just shove them in when they've not had a little run of games in the seconds and they're a little bit rusty, like you could with a player like, for example, Jake Ball. But yeah, so I would want to see little bit of form with a ball for Alfie in the seconds, and then get him in straight away because he's such a point difference. He's quick and he moves it, and obviously with the left arm angle as well, he's gold dust.
Well, he might very well play against Hampshire, mightn't he?
We'd hope so. We'll come on to our 11s in a minute.
But
Alex Vaughan wants to know why our away form is so bad in the Championship. I mean, think about our away games last year. Durham, we got hammered because we had a virus in the yard. We ran Surrey pretty close.
Well, they ran us pretty close.
Well, I mean, we weren't absolutely smashed by the 3 times county champions, were we?
No. We played quite well in that game.
Yeah. Notts was a draw from 4-1, really. That was an absolute road.
Yeah.
Warwickshire,
Edgbaston. Yeah, Edgbaston. Kent was a draw, and that was. Did it rain much that game?
First day of the season, yeah.
Well, yeah. It was grim. It was grim.
Yeah. What other games? So, what other games did we lose away from home?
Worcestershire was a draw at Kidderminster, although he didn't play very well in the game.
That was grim as well. That was even grimmer.
Well, that was cold, wasn't it? That one rainy. So was it only Durham that we lost away from home?
Lancashire, Old Trafford.
Oh, Lancashire, where we absolutely, well, we didn't have Banton.
Really
we've been up and down virtually every single motorway in the country in the previous few days, going to quarterfinals and finals and semi-finals and finals day. So I think the players may have just been cooked. So kind of looking at all of those games, there's no real trend as to why we didn't pick up 2 or 3 wins there. Don't know is the answer, Alex.
Yeah, we all ready to win more games at Taunton.
Well,
if we had pitches prepared to suit our bowlers, we don't make the most of our home advantage.
I think it's a want to try it.
We did win 5 out of 7 at Taunton last year.
Yeah.
But prior to that, there was quite a lot of draws over the couple of seasons before that. But we do have a way to win at Taunton, particularly late season with spin. And obviously the Essex game last year was very seam friendly. The Kent and Warwickshire games were quite flat. We found a way to win. They were very good wins. But away is the issue. I think, and to be fair, there was a period where we weren't even winning at home. 21, 22, 23 seasons, like we didn't win that many games at all. We made Taunton a fortress again last season by winning 5 out of 7, but we just need to recover that away form as well, while hopefully maintaining our home form from last year over the next over the rest of this season.
Yeah.
All right. Any more that we haven't done? Freddie Marsden. Why do we let go of Baker? Chat about that. Would Renshaw have been a better bet than Pretorius? Don't think Renshaw was available. He's just had a wee babby. But how did Yorkshire skittle the pairs twice in 3 days when we couldn't do it in 4? Was it the pitch or something else? Probably the pitch, maybe the bowling.
Pitch, I suspect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Andy Cleve. I think we've done most of that. How many chances will Sean Dixon get? Should we be concerned about the ageing bowling attack lacking potency and consistency? Cupboard of young fast bowlers coming through seems rather bare, other than Ogbourne and Langridge. Well, we had a good few, but we've let them all go. And Ogbourne should be getting first team opportunities. Concerned that the hierarchy deemed Jake Ball to be ahead of him in the pecking order, etc., etc., etc. Harry Blannin, what's the solution to the opening partnership? We get Lambie to open again? No.
I thought the best question was from John Hayes, which is, will we be looking up or down this season?
Well, we're looking up at the moment. We're only 19 points off top. Is it 19 points or 16 points?
You're not worried about the early form?
Yeah,
the absence
very
of
worried.
Henry? Yeah, so am I.
Yeah, 16 points off top. We are. We're an 8th.
But we've played 2 sides, one of whom was promoted last season and the other one was promoted this season.
Mm-hmm.
and we didn't finish the deal against Worcester, and we were well beaten at Hove. I mean, that to me is cause for concern.
Yeah.
Yep.
And now we've got 3 difficult games coming up. You know, Hampshire away and Surrey away, 2 of the hardest games we'll play this season. Home to Essex. Essex are a very good side. You know, if we don't get any wins from those games, you know, we could be in the mire. Like, there will be pressure then. I mean, then there's potentially there might be some easier games coming up after that, but the pressure will be on. You know, if we want to be looking up towards the title, we've got to win a couple of these next 3 games and prove that we are one of the top sides.
Absolutely right.
It'll be very Somerset to go and roll Hampshire and then Surrey over, wouldn't it? Just to all of a sudden wake up. Tom Abel's looking in great nick. Tom Banton's in good nick. Great nick. Lammonby is looking good.
James Roos
looking great. Lewis Gregory's doing well.
Yeah.
Craig Overton's had a good rest. He'll be raring to go. Matt Henry will be here, hopefully.
In your dreams,
I
think, Chaps. In your dreams.
Well, it would be nice. Hey, if you don't have a dream, you never have a dream come true. Somebody once said. Yeah, as I've not heard anything more about when Henry's going to be here. Any ears to the ground and picked up any jungle drums on that one? No. Right. Sad note to end the podcast on there. I was going to see Pretorius back. He bowled second innings, he kind of bowled like he does. Batted like we know he does. I think he'll be
his wicket. I looked up his average today. His wickets for Somerset cost just over 40 runs apiece. Yeah, I mean his batting average is okay, but I'm not sure he's the answer to our.
I think he's bowled better than that. I think he's bowled better than going for 40 runs apiece.
Do you really think so?
Yeah, I think he's bowled well and he's bowled steady. He hasn't gone for many. He doesn't let sides get away.
He's a journeyman.
Ian, do you have to sort of move your affection for our stalwart South African lower order all-rounder now? Is this something that's it's sort of seeping into your brain, maybe, even you don't realise at the moment?
No, I don't know what stage I am with Roloff, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm still fully expecting him to have a change of heart, turn up and wearing that hideous pink shirt with Mickey Mouse on the front and playing in the Blast this year. We're living in hope. He's going to share a flight over with Matt Henry.
Just on Pretorius, he did start last season quite badly as well. You know, he took a while to grow into a spell.
Oh yes, Dan, very badly, so badly it won him an award in his first game.
I mean, I'm more talking about his bowling as well, but he did grow into it. And if you look, first 3 games he played, he didn't bowl great, but after his first 3 games, he then took 19 wickets at an average of 27. So he did improve a lot, and he, had quite a few key innings with the bat down the order. I think he's a very useful player to have to share the workload with the other bowlers.
Useful, useful. I would agree with. Yeah, useful.
And I think, given his availability,
a good fourth seamer, Anthony.
Yeah, exactly. But you compare him with someone like, Sean Hunt, who bowled for Sussex, who looked the real deal. He looked like he was going to take a wicket almost every over, and Pretorius with the best one in the world. He's plugging away. He's not a bad bowler, and but on pitches that don't give him much help, he isn't going to take many wickets.
Well, he took 2 3-fers against Kent last year at Taunton. That really flat.
3-fers, Dan, listen to yourself. 2 3-fers.
I'm just saying that was a flat pitch, and they were key wickets. He bowled his absolute heart out, and he was a key part in that.
Very wholehearted cricketer. But the word that you use is exactly right. It's useful. He's a useful cricketer. He's a useful all-round cricketer.
Who has been in
the championship? I'll tell you that.
I think he's more than the sum of his parts. I think I'm with Danny. I know what everyone's saying. Yeah, he's useful, but I think he's
no Sean Abbott.
Well, no, but he's got a bloody good engine. He's a hard worker. He's a good guy, and he seems to me like he's a real good team man as well.
Yes, he is.
So,
absolutely.
I think he will try his bollocks off for his adopted county. Which not native to or anything like that.
The great
but I
Somerset side of the late 70s, early 80s had Colin Dredge.
Oh, Dredge was far better bowler than Pretorius.
Well, I'm just going to say, Anthony, and he was the fourth seamer in that attack, fourth seamer. And I was just going to say he's, in my mind, way superior than Miggy P.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And that's, with all due respect, Craig is outstanding, but we had a couple of chaps called Garner and Botham who led the attack then. And, Colin Dredge, we could argue, well, he benefited because we used to get wickets. No, he didn't, because he was just hideous to watch, but incredibly effective.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you've got now, you're looking at the side without Matt Henry and Craig Overton, where perhaps you're just asking too much of that next tier.
Well,
the fact remains we couldn't bowl Worcester out, and we can't take wickets against Sussex, and that, I sort of in my mind had a list about 15 things to be worried about. I think we talked about half of them.
Are you suggesting we should have sent a taxi to Frome and got old Dredgy out of retirement for that?
Yeah. I did once play against Frome with 10 Dredges in a side.
Yeah. I tell you what, Lewis Gregory was much our best seam bowler at home. And he is creaking. He is creaking. He cannot. He won't be able to bowl 30 or 40 overs in a game. His body just won't take it, and that to me is the real cause of concern. Without Craig Overton, and with Lewis Gregory with his long chronic injury problems, we're looking. It's hard to see, other than on a spinning pitch, how we're going to bowl out
we bowled
good side
opposition twice
in the course of a game.
You love putting a line out there just to end these podcasts on a really dour and
positive note.
Well, yeah, right. Let's quickly. What we do for Hampshire then? I mean, we've kind of by default we're keeping Dixon and Vaughan and the top 6. I'm batting Gregory ahead of Casey.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Craig
Craig's
comes back in. Probably Josh gets rotated out.
Probably Josh misses out. Matt Henry.
Unless what Anthony says about Lewis Gregory means he gets rotated out.
I think Lewis will play. I asked him, and
okay.
He said he's okay. He's okay for the time being. I don't think they'll rotate him out. But I think probably Josh Davey would be the one to miss out. Yeah, but they could conceivably rotate out Josh Davey and Casey Aldridge, and give Alfie Ogborn a go alongside Craig Overton, which would be interesting, I think.
It would be. And of course, with Southampton being on the flight path from Canterbury, New Zealand, Matt Henry could just parachute out down into the Aegeus Bowl, a bit like the Queen did at the Olympics.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, right. Anyway, Somerset women have had a couple of friendlies down. Their season starts next Wednesday. They're away at Surrey in Kent for some bizarre reason. That's in the women's Metro 50 start. But friendlies against Glamorgan at Taunton and Warwickshire up at Edgbaston last week.
Yeah, Somerset I say beat them. It was nominal, really, because they played with more than 10 wickets. But yeah, Somerset beat Glamorgan by 23 runs. Just looking at the scorecard now. 69 for Jess Hazel, 50 for Chloe Skelton, which was good to see. 4 for 11 for Griffiths. Alex Griffiths, 3 for 31 for Olivia Barnes, who's new left-arm spinner signed from Kent. Then they lost to Warwickshire by 90 runs at Edgbaston yesterday. Thoroughly outplayed, to be honest, by the looks of it. I mean, the high score for Somerset was 30 by Katie Jones. A couple of twofers, Manchester Wellington and Olivia Barnes. So not so good yesterday. But the next friendly is against Hampshire on Friday at Taunton. I'm not sure. I assume fans will be allowed in. Somerset didn't really publicise the last game at Taunton, the previous friendly at Taunton against Glamorgan. But it did say on the website that fans were welcome. So I assume the same will be again this Friday, which is obviously Good Friday. So weather permitting, hopefully a few fans go down there.
Yeah, weather's not going to be particularly great. Gibbo, I presume you'll be down at the whatever it's called bowl this week with Kevin James.
The Utilita Bowl for my sins, I will be. Yep.
look forward to hearing you two bickering about how many Somerset-born players versus how many Hampshire-born players are in the sides.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Hampshire are doing a bit better on that score now. So,
well, let's hope there isn't a Devonian in the Hampshire ranks who causes merry hell, Mr. One Sonny Baker. I think we'll wrap that up now. Gents, done about an hour. Unless we've got any other business.
No, I think I'm suitably psychiatrist chaired for another week.
Good. Glad to hear it. Right. Well, thanks for listening, everyone. Best of luck to Lewis and the boys down at the Bowl on Friday. And we'll be podding before Somerset women make their trip up to or across to Beckenham, so we can wish Sophie luck and the team best of luck next week. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch up with you next week.
Cheers,
Cheers everyone.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers, everyone.
Cheers.
Bye.